My name is Marcus Sullivan, and I'm going to tell you about the night that killed one version of me and forged another from the ashes. This isn't a story about forgiveness or redemption. It's about what happens when the foundation of your entire world cracks, and you have to decide whether to patch it or tear it down and build something stronger. The city stretched out beneath my office window like a circuit board of light and possibility. Chicago in October, my favorite time of year. Sullivan Associates had just closed on the Riverside Tower project, a $70 million contract that would cement our reputation as one of the premier architect firms in the Midwest. At 33, I'd built something that mattered, something tangible, something that would outlast me. The engagement ring sat in my desk drawer. I'd picked it up that afternoon, a flawless 2-carat emerald-cut diamond that had cost me 3 months' salary, though money wasn't really the issue anymore. Rachel would love it. We'd been together for 4 years, and it felt like the natural next step. She was an art curator with impeccable taste, the kind of woman who made rooms brighter just by entering them. My parents adored her. My colleagues envied me. Everything was falling into place with the precision of a well-executed blueprint. Then my phone lit up with a message that would detonate everything. Unknown number. Just 3 words. The Northside Motel. Tonight. No signature. No context. But somehow, deep in my gut were instincts I knew it was about Rachel. The same way you know a building's going to fail before the first crack appears. You just sense the weakness in the structure. I should have ignored it. Should have deleted it and gone home to the woman I was planning to propose to. Instead, I closed my laptop, grabbed my coat, and drove across town to a place I'd never been, following a summons I didn't understand. The Northside Motel was exactly the kind of place you'd expect for bad news. Flickering neon sign. Parking lot full of cars that had seen better decades. The kind of establishment that asked no questions and remembered no faces. Room 217 was on the second floor, accessible by an exterior staircase that smelled like cigarettes and regret. I knocked once. The door opened immediately. Jordan Pierce stood there, my best friend since college, looking like he'd aged 10 years in the week since I'd last seen him. His eyes were bloodshot, his clothes rumpled, and his hands shook as he stepped aside to let me enter. "What's going on?" I asked, though part of me already knew. Already understood why he couldn't look at me directly. "I need to show you something," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "and I need you to know that I'm sorry. I'm so goddamn sorry, Marcus." He pulled out his phone with trembling fingers and opened his photo gallery, started scrolling, and there she was. Rachel. My Rachel. In photos that made my stomach turn to concrete, with Jordan, in positions and situations that left no room for misinterpretation. The timestamps went back months, 6 months to be precise. Half a year of lunches and late nights and weekend gallery visits that I'd never questioned because I trusted them both completely. "How long have you been sitting on these?" I heard myself ask, my voice oddly calm. "I took them myself," Jordan said, and the shame in his voice was so thick you could choke on it. "I hired a private investigator 3 weeks ago because I thought she might be cheating on you. Turned out the person she was cheating with was me." The room tilted. Not literally, but in that way, reality shifts when you discover that up is down and solid ground is quicksand. You hired an investigator to catch yourself? The absurdity would have been funny if it wasn't destroying my entire life. "I suspected someone," Jordan said, sinking onto the bed like his legs wouldn't hold him anymore. "I didn't want to believe it was me she was using. I thought maybe there was someone else that I was just, I don't know, a symptom of a bigger problem. But the investigator just confirmed what I already knew. She's been playing us both, using your stability and my excitement, having her cake and eating it too." I looked at the photos again, forced myself to study them with the same analytical eye I used for building plans, looking for flaws, for Photoshop artifacts, for any evidence that this was an elaborate, cruel joke. But they were real. The mole on Rachel's left shoulder, the bracelet I'd given her for her birthday last year, the hotel rooms and restaurant booths, and even, God help me, the interior of my own car on a day I'd been stuck in meetings. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked Jordan. "Why not just disappear? Let me live in ignorance?" "Because I love you like a brother," he said, and tears were streaming down his face now. Because you deserve better than this, better than her, better than me. And because if I didn't tell you, I'd have to watch you marry her in 3 months, and I couldn't live with that on my conscience. I stood there in that terrible room, looking at my best friend crying on a motel bed, holding evidence of the worst betrayal I'd ever experienced, and felt something inside me shut down. Not break. Breaking implies pieces that can be glued back together. This was more like a controlled demolition. The kind where you place the charges precisely so the structure collapses in on itself, creating a foundation for whatever comes next. Get out, I said quietly. Marcus, get out! The explosion came from somewhere primal, somewhere I didn't recognize. You think telling me makes you noble? You think this confession absolves you? You're not my brother. You're not my friend. You're just another structural failure I need to clear from the site. Jordan left without another word. I sat in that room for 2 hours, staring at the photos, memorizing every detail. Not because I enjoyed the pain, but because I needed to understand exactly how I'd been fooled, where I'd missed the signs, how my trust had been weaponized against me. Then I drove home to confront Rachel. She was in the kitchen when I arrived, making pasta like it was any other Tuesday night, humming along to music playing from her phone. She looked up when I entered, and her smile was so genuine, so warm, that for a split second I questioned everything I'd just seen. Hey babe, you're late. I was worried. I set my phone on the counter between us, let her see what was on the screen. Her face went through a fascinating journey in about 3 seconds. Confusion, recognition, fear, and then, surprisingly, relief. The same relief I'd seen in Jordan's eyes when he'd finally confessed. Marcus, don't, I said, holding up my hand. Don't apologize. Don't explain. Don't insult me with justifications. Just answer one question. Did you ever actually love me? She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again, and in that hesitation, I found my answer. I cared about you, she finally said, and there was something almost like honesty in her voice now. I did. I do. You're brilliant and successful and stable. You're everything a woman should want. Should want, I repeated, but not what you actually wanted. Jordan made me feel alive, she admitted, and now the words were coming faster like a dam breaking. You make me feel safe and respected and valued, but Jordan makes me feel dangerous, exciting, like I'm still young and wild instead of planning retirement funds and mortgage rates. I laughed then. Couldn't help it. The sound came out bitter and sharp. So I was the foundation and he was the fireworks. I was the investment and he was the thrill. How very economical of you, Rachel, diversifying your portfolio. She flinched. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. And you know what? I'm grateful. You just saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. I pulled the ring box from my pocket and set it on the counter next to my phone, watched her eyes widen as she realized what it was, what I'd been planning. Congratulations, I said. You get to keep playing your game, but not with me in it. I'm out. I walked out of that kitchen, out of that relationship, out of that entire chapter of my life. Behind me, I heard Rachel calling my name, heard something that might have been genuine regret in her voice, but I didn't turn around. That Marcus Sullivan, the one who believed in fairy tales and happily ever after, died in that kitchen. What walked out was something different, something harder, something that understood that trust was a luxury and vulnerability was a weakness. The next 6 months were a blur of work and gym sessions and cold efficiency. I threw myself into Sullivan and Associates with the kind of focused intensity that made my partners nervous. 18-hour days became normal. I stopped going to social events, stopped maintaining friendships that reminded me of Jordan and Rachel. I became known as the brilliant architect who never smiled, never joked, never let anyone close. The firm tripled its revenue. We landed contracts that should have been impossible. My reputation grew to the point where developers competed for my attention. But success felt hollow, like building magnificent structures with no one to share them with. Then I met Victoria Chen at a zoning hearing. She was representing a community organization opposed to one of our projects, and she eviscerated my arguments with surgical precision. Smart, prepared, ruthless in the best possible way. After the hearing, which ended in a stalemate that would require weeks of negotiation, I approached her with a proposition. Dinner. My treat. Let's talk about finding common ground. She looked at me with eyes that missed nothing. This isn't a date. This is two professionals discussing a complex problem over food instead of across a table full of hostile attorneys. Then I accept, but I'm ordering the expensive wine. That dinner turned into a second meeting, then a third. Slowly, carefully, we built something that felt nothing like what I'd had with Rachel. There was no rush of infatuation, no desperate passion, just two people who'd both been burned recognizing something solid in each other. Victoria never asked about my past relationships, never pushed for vulnerability I wasn't ready to give. She understood that some people needed space to heal, and she gave me that space while simultaneously making it clear she wasn't going anywhere. After a year of dating, I proposed to her in the most unromantic way possible during a review of construction documents for a project we were collaborating on. She'd just solved a problem I'd been wrestling with for weeks, and I looked at her across the table covered in blueprints and realized I wanted to build a future with this brilliant, patient, complicated woman. "Marry me," I said. No preamble, no ring, no grand gesture. She looked up from her notes, blinked once. "Is this because I solved your zoning variance issue? This is because I trust you, and I haven't trusted anyone in 18 months. "That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me," she replied with a slight smile. "Yes." We planned the wedding with the same efficiency we approached our professional collaboration: small ceremony, close friends only, security measures that would make a presidential event look casual. We weren't taking chances. The wedding was set for a Saturday in March at a private estate outside Chicago. Everything went perfectly. Too perfectly. Which should have been my first warning. 2 days before the ceremony, my assistant handed me a letter that had been delivered by courier. No return address. Inside was a single page, handwritten in Rachel's distinctive script. "Marcus, I know I have no right to contact you. I know what I did was unforgivable, but I'm asking you anyway. Please don't marry Victoria. Not because I want you back, because I owe you the truth about her that you deserve to know before you make this mistake." The letter went on for 2 pages, detailing allegations that Victoria had been hired by one of my competitors to get close to me, to steal project information, to sabotage my firm from the inside. It included dates, supposed meetings, copies of financial transactions. My hands shook as I read it, not because I believed it, but because I couldn't immediately dismiss it either. And that uncertainty felt like betrayal all over again. I showed the letter to Victoria that evening, watched her face as she read it, waited for anger or outrage or defensive explanations. Instead, she pulled out her phone and made a call. "Brad, Victoria, I need a full digital forensics report on my email and financial accounts for the past 2 years. Yes, everything. I want it delivered to Marcus Sullivan's office tomorrow morning. Bill it to my personal account." She hung up and looked at me calmly. "I'm not going to tell you to trust me," she said, "because trust needs to be verified, especially after what you've been through. So verify, investigate, tear apart every aspect of my life if you need to, because I have nothing to hide and you deserve to be certain." That response told me everything I needed to know, but I still ordered the forensic audit. Not because I doubted her, but because she was right. I needed to be certain. The report came back clean, completely, utterly clean. Victoria's financial records showed exactly what she'd told me about her background. Her emails contained nothing suspicious. Her client lists, her project histories, her entire professional life checked out perfectly. But the report also revealed something else. The letter from Rachel had been sent from an IP address registered to Jordan Pierce's law firm. I called Jordan for the first time in 18 months. "Why?" I asked when he answered. Silence. "Then, because you deserve better than her. You don't get to decide that, not after what you did. Marcus, listen to me. Victoria isn't who you think she is. Rachel might be a mess, but she's trying to protect you. Rachel is working with you to sabotage my wedding because she can't stand that I moved on, that I built something better without her. And you're helping her because you're still the same selfish bastard who couldn't keep his hands off my fiancée." I hung up, blocked his number, and made a decision that would define who I'd become. The wedding day arrived with perfect March weather. As I stood at the altar watching Victoria walk toward me, I saw Rachel and Jordan in the crowd of onlookers beyond the estate gates. They'd somehow found out where we were getting married and come to protest or disrupt, or whatever desperate plan they'd concocted. But we had security, real security. They didn't get within 50 yards of the ceremony. I married Victoria with clear eyes and a full heart, knowing exactly what I was choosing and why. Not because she was perfect, but because she was real. Because when tested, she'd responded with strength instead of manipulation. Because she understood that love built on lies crumbles, but love built on verified truth could withstand anything. 3 months after the wedding, I got a final message from Rachel. Not through Jordan this time, but directly. I'm sorry for everything. I hope you find happiness, even if it's not with me. You deserved better than what I gave you. I showed it to Victoria, who read it once and then deleted it. The past is foundation, she said. It supports what we build, but it's not where we live. 5 years later, I'm standing in my office, now on the 52nd floor of a building I designed myself, looking out at Chicago with my wife's hand in mine. Sullivan and Chen Architects has become one of the most respected firms in the country. We have 3 offices, 200 employees, and a reputation for brilliant designs built on solid foundations. I never heard from Jordan or Rachel again. Last I checked, they'd moved to Portland and opened some kind of organic coffee shop. They're probably happy. I hope they are, honestly. Not for their sake, but for my own. Because their happiness means they're not thinking about me, not regretting their choices, not trying to force their way back into my life. I learned something from being betrayed by the 2 people I trusted most. You can't control whether people will hurt you. You can only control how you rebuild afterward, whether you patch the cracks and hope they hold, or whether you demolish the damaged structure and build something stronger from the foundation up. I chose demolition. I chose to become someone new, someone harder to fool, someone who verified before trusting and demanded actions over words. Some people might call that cynical, closed off, damaged. I call it engineering. You don't build skyscrapers on assumptions. You build them on tested materials, proven methods, and structures designed to withstand the worst possible stresses. My marriage to Victoria is a skyscraper, built on truth, reinforced with transparency, designed to weather any storm. Not because we're perfect, but because we're honest. Not because we never disagree, but because we've built systems for resolving those disagreements without compromising the structure. That's what betrayal taught me. Not to never trust again, but to trust differently, to verify, to test, to demand that the foundation can support the weight before you start building upward. Jordan and Rachel gave me a gift, though they'll never know it. They showed me what hollow ground feels like. And once you've felt a foundation crumble beneath you, you never build on soft earth again. Standing here with Victoria, looking out at a city full of buildings I helped create, I finally understand what it means to be rebuilt. Not to be unbroken, I'll always carry the scars of that betrayal, but to be stronger in the broken places, to be wiser about where I place my trust and my love. The old Marcus Sullivan died in that kitchen 18 months before I met Victoria, but what emerged from those ashes was someone worth becoming. Someone who understood that the greatest revenge isn't making your enemies suffer, it's building a life so solid, so successful, so genuinely fulfilling that their absence becomes a blessing instead of a wound. I'm Marcus Sullivan, founder of Sullivan and Chen Architects, husband to Victoria Chen, father to twin daughters who will grow up understanding that strength comes not from avoiding betrayal, but from refusing to let it define you. And this is my blueprint for rebuilding after destruction. Verify. Trust actions. Build on solid foundations, and never, ever settle for soft ground just because it feels comfortable, because comfort is temporary. But good engineering, that lasts forever.